If your weaves are just not turning out like you'd hope for them to, keep watching and I'll help you troubleshoot the top problems that you might run into. The first problem that you might find is that you're not using the proper grip assist. Some people do not need this, but others might. Experiment with jewelry clamps and see if they have any benefit for you. They make it much easier to start your weaving project, so you might benefit from using a jewelry clamp. The biggest issue that I see with people having trouble with weaves is just not using the correct gauges together. Here I am using 22 gauge and 24 gauge. The 24 gauge is far too big for 22 gauge. I personally don't use 24 gauge to weave unless my base wire is 18 gauge and up, so i.e. 18, 16, 14, etc. So the thicker the gauge, the more I'll turn to 24 gauge. The gauges that I recommend the most for weaving are 26 and 28 gauge, especially 28 gauge. That is going to work with practically any gauge, whether that's 18, 20, 22. You can even wrap 28 gauge around 24 gauge wire. A good sweet spot gauge to have is 26. It's strong enough to be able to hold and secure elements together and keep them in place, and still dainty enough to have a nice tight clean look. So if you find that you're having trouble with your gauges and having nice tight gauges, make sure that you're keeping your tension equal, which a jewelry clamp can help with that. So if you have 24 gauge wire and you plan to weave with it, I wouldn't use it with anything thinner than 20 gauge half hard wire. If you use 20 gauge dead soft with 24 gauge, it's not gonna look right. Those are the biggest issues. I personally would recommend for most beginners for weaving to just stick with 26 or 28 gauge wire. 24 gauge definitely has its places in coiling and securing elements, but it's not my favorite as far as bail making goes unless I'm using thicker gauges like 18 or 16 gauge. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Please leave suggestions down below. If you'd like to see a tutorial on how to make coils, comment coil down below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!